Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly 30-minute webinar. My name is Brian McKay, Systems Engineer here at Variphy, and I'll be your host for today's session, where we will be discussing a new feature in Variphy 16.2 that will allow you to retain data for decommissioned clusters. Here to walk us through, we have my fellow engineer, Matt Sykes. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing just aces, Brian. How are you, sir?
Absolutely the same. Happy to have you on board, and we'll just get rolling here. Please note that these webinars are always recorded and posted within 24 hours, so you can review them anytime. Check out the webinars page at variphy.com for all of our past and upcoming sessions. Let's start off with a quick overview of Variphy. Then we'll jump into a live demo where Matt's going to walk us through the new decommissioned cluster options. We'll then pause for a Q&A. During the demo, if you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the chat. We will not answer them in chat, though. We'll answer them at the end. After Q&A, we'll reward one lucky attendee with a $50 Amazon gift card. So stick around to see if you won. Quick overview of Variphy. Variphy is the preferred analytics and management solution tool for Cisco, Zoom, and now Microsoft Teams collaboration. Deployable either on-prem or as a hosted cloud solution, we provide industry-leading call reporting and analytics, as well as customizable dashboards and widgets, ECCX reporting, remote phone control, change management, Cisco and Zoom call reporting, and our most recent addition as of Variphy 16.1, Microsoft Teams call reporting. If you have any questions on any of our features, please contact us at support@variphy.com or reach out to your account manager. One more thing before we kick this off. For an additional fee, Variphy also offers an enhanced consulting service to our customers. Variphy Systems Engineer team engages with you on a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, report building, dashboard configuration, and system monitoring assistance. This is a service that provides you with a dedicated Variphy Systems Engineer to do the heavy lifting, giving you a stress-free, hands-off experience. For more information, please contact us or your account manager, and we'll be glad to speak more in depth about pricing and terms of service for our enhanced consulting services, or ECS. All right, with that, let's go ahead and get into the wild here. I'm going to hand control over to Matt now. Please remember to type any questions in the chat, and we will address them at the end of his presentation. Over to you.
Welcome, everyone. Matt Sykes here. Okay, so as Brian just opened the door for us, so today we will be discussing Variphy 16.2 and the option to go ahead and decommission a call manager cluster within Variphy. Okay, so certainly I'm kind of opening up here with kind of my multi-platform dashboard, because certainly a popular flavor, definitely this day and age, is people migrating away from the call manager platforms to maybe one of the newer web-based platforms like WebEx, Teams, or maybe even Zoom Phone. So as customers are currently looking to migrate to cloud calling, whether it's one of these the big three we're calling them these days, they may have ongoing needs to retain call manager reporting even after they've decommissioned those call manager servers. Previously to 16.2 in Variphy, if you were to if Variphy was unable, to communicate with the call manager publishers, we wouldn't be able to leverage any of the reporting through the GUI. So you wouldn't be able to run any history searches, run any reports, or do anything for the analytics or even the change management stuff, because we wouldn't have access to the call manager to vet the data or actual query what we need to for the product to deliver our polished reporting as always. So now in 16.2, we have to support this, we now have a new licensing option that dictates specific clusters can be used in Variphy in a decommissioned manner. Meaning Variphy doesn't need a call manager to connect to, but certainly there are some highly recommended options that we advocate for ahead of decommissioning a cluster within Variphy. We're going to kind of walk through that right now. Okay, so within Variphy, I'm going to go all the way up to our settings gear here in the upper right. We're going to go to platforms. In this lab of mine, I've only got a few on here at the moment, none of the big three, but from the call manager perspective, let's just go take a quick look. Now, in this lab here, underneath the setup and administration for the call manager clusters, let me zoom in for your eyes. Sorry about that. Okay, as we can see here, I have one live call manager that's up and running. I have a few that are decommissioned. We'll kind of tap into those in a few moments. But essentially, this is what the process is going to kind of look like within Variphy. So, within Variphy, we can, once we decommission these clusters, again, we won't need access to the call manager, but what we'll have access to will be the analytics reporting, the dashboarding, snapshots, as-built reports and comparisons out of the change management module. So we're going to get into that as well. What is not accessible with a decommissioned license is going to be the remote phone control, macros, broadcast, the dial plan management module, log analysis within the change management module. Well, kind of hover over it a bit, but also another widget that's on that needs real-time adoption. That guy is going to be the real-time hunt pilot status widget. So certainly, decommissioned cluster, we wouldn't be able to tap into the call manager to get this real-time data out of the API. So this would be one of the 7 widgets that wouldn't be functioning underneath the licensing of a decom cluster within Variphy. Okay, so just wanted to kind of get those out of the way. Brian, I think, did pump a KB article out that you can certainly take a look at. We did put that together recently, and this is kind of what I'm just swiftly covering, the available features and the non-available features that will be missing with the decom licensing. So feel free to review that. But essentially here, what we can do is now out in the field, you're not going to have access to be able to go ahead and decommission your own clusters. You certainly need our assistance from a licensing perspective to turn them off. Now, certainly, we highly recommend to work in conjunction with the with the customers and the client base to go ahead and kind of capture the last most valid items out of Call Manager before it goes offline, as an example. So I'll just kind of hover our eyes on over here. So this one, the Chicago cluster, I do have that is enabled here. It is active. What we can see now here on the far right, now we have a new kind of an on-off or a power button. The hover over showcases that this is a decommissioned cluster button. So I'll just click on it for right now. It's not going to ruin the production of that cluster in my lab, but I'll just read this real briefly. Decommissioning this cluster will allow you to use your Call Manager data even if your CUCM is no longer accessible. Performing this action will require an adjustment to your Variphy license key. Therefore, the first steps that you'll want to utilize to decommission the cluster is take this information and send it over to licensing@variphy.com or follow up with your account manager. But probably the licensing team would be the best to handle this. But we'll need to know the information that's kind of shaded in this kind of navy blue area here. So the cluster name, the identifiers, and all of that. But now one large component right here is going to be, once our team completes the licensing adjustments where we add on the decommissioning option for this cluster so that we retain all the data and it is accessible through the UI, is that we strongly recommend that we perform a final sync and snapshot before proceeding. And it will list out the most recent successful sync of this cluster I'm looking at for Chicago here. Happened to be this morning. Again, this is not one we're about to decommission, but certainly what we would want to do is perform a metadata sync as well as an audit or a change management snapshot. And I'll kind of walk through that as well. So this isn't going to turn anything off, but this gives you the information, who to reach out to, and the contents of your system so that we can go ahead and add that licensing after those licensing discussions are had with our team. Okay, so once that is taken care of and the licensing is updated, we reload it into a system out in the field. Then the cluster will be decommissioned, as you can see here. Dallas, Miami, I have them decommed. But there's definitely databases that are still accessible for reportable data from analytics or dashboards, but also the change management. Now, the one thing with the dashboard and widgets, these will eventually age out, let's just say. So let's just kind of pretend here that maybe at the end of August, that this Call Manager is going bye-bye. It's going to be unplugged and it's going to be decommissioned technically at the location. And maybe they're moving to WebEx calling as an example. What we would recommend certainly is getting the decommissioned licensing in the Variphy license key. But then also what we're going to want to do is we're also going to want to take a sync or a metadata sync from the Call Manager before obviously it goes offline. Example, we did this one for Dallas actually this morning ahead of this session here. So what this provides for us is all the metadata that was, I guess, last built in Call Manager. Now within Variphy, certainly we have capabilities to go ahead and let me just jump over here to go ahead and run searches off of whatever data is available in our databases. But also this data sync is kind of what I'm talking about. So out in the field, if we're not using some type of a sync schedule where we're taking not snapshots, but we're taking configuration downloads of all the inventory components, usernames, device pools, device descriptions, directory number descriptions on a nightly basis or on a set schedule, and it's only using current configuration, we would want to slide into the sync option underneath the admin and setup to go ahead and perform one last sync. So that, again, we have the most current and recent metadata coming from the call manager, so that department names, device pools, all of that. So we have all of that for the reporting after everything is turned off on that cluster. Secondly, what we'll want also for that is going to be a snapshot, pardon me. So that's where I was earlier. So snapshots. So this is particular for the as-built licensing within Variphy. So normally out in the field, the snapshot Variphy is taking snapshots of all the inventory of the call managers on a nightly basis. If for some reason it has not, we would probably want to perform one last sync on the against the call manager, so we have all the inventory or the last inventory that call manager had within its architecture or within its configurations. What we'll be able to do with that then is be able to go ahead and then leverage that in a decommissioned manner. So what I mean by that is an example here. This is Dallas. I was playing around with this last night. So Dallas, even being in a decommissioned status, I can still go ahead and run quick searches, history searches. I can run reports, and even access other data components. But even from here, I can leverage the data from August 1st that I picked on just for any and all calls. But just giving you an example of being able to go ahead and leverage data out of this without being connected to Dallas's call manager any longer. So that's pretty much the point behind this licensing structure, because certainly for compliance, data retention needs, a lot of environments are going to want to have access to this old data. Just because they're decommissioning that platform doesn't necessarily mean that they may not have any HR requests or legal requests for data records that they need to pull off of that decommed platform from a year ago, from 6 months ago, if there's some litigation or something that needs to be identified for any call statistics. So it's definitely the point of use for this, because we definitely don't want this data to be orphaned, for lack of a better term, within the application. We certainly want access to it. So seeing that, knowing that we have access to the analytics, the reportability is going to be fantastic. You will be able to notify Variphy of this to go ahead and decom it for you and put that into the licensing. But then also what you're going to have, so I'm going to slide over into the change management. So what you'll also have, and let me slide over here, but you'll also notice once a platform is decommissioned, that labeling is going to follow around the platform name all over Variphy. So I'm looking to change a platform here. I can see Dallas and Miami have already been decommissioned. We'll go entertain those in a second. Even the app launcher. So if I'm jumping around between different clusters or different platforms in Variphy, again, these decommissioning brackets and parentheses here certainly will be apparent. So just want to make mention of that. So let's swap on over to, maybe we'll take a peek at Miami as an example. So Miami, I'm on the decommissioned cluster here. We have ran a recent snapshot, I do believe, and we have one from earlier this morning on this 11.0 call manager. So what we can do, a couple different things. Again, this call manager is offline. Variphy cannot communicate with this call manager cluster any longer. But again, having that most recent snapshot so that we know all of the inventory that was programmed in this call manager at that point in time before it was turned off. So we can see all the summarization correct. We can drill into anything that we need to, just as if this was a live configurable cluster within Variphy. So maybe poking at the enterprise parameters as an example, I can certainly see what these were as of this morning. And if there's a need for or aiding the migration projects that are happening, going from call manager to one of the newer platforms, if because you don't always want to take all of the every configuration from call manager in case there's some bloat or if there's some unregistered devices and stuff like that don't necessarily need to be migrated over. Certainly this can be viewed at ahead of that time, but also maybe even after the fact. So if there's kind of questions or concerns about what were the enterprise configurables at the very end of the life cycle for this call manager platform, Variphy should have them here in our memory banks to be able to kind of go ahead and showcase those, and also be able to perform comparisons against multiple snapshots. Now let's see, for Miami, I don't think I have more than one, but if I had more than one, certainly I'd be able to leverage one against another, just like we have for others. Maybe I'll swap over to Dallas real quickly here. Dallas, I should have a few. Yeah, I have more. I have more over here, but I don't think I have any changes, so I'm not going to run any of those. But certainly, you can run a comparison change against the snapshots to uncover, any of the moves, adds, and changes that took place from time frame A to time frame B. That functionality will still be applicable, including the as-built functionality. So while drilling into a snapshot is fun, exporting those into sheets or CSVs may not be as fun. Let me pop back over to Miami. But we can certainly vet the inventory in our content reports for as-built. Now, let's maybe entertain, I don't know, enterprise parameters. There we go. So we were just looking at those in a snapshot a few moments ago. I'll give it a pretty name label, enterprise params, so we can at least see what the configurables were at this call manager, again, at the very last day of its uptime. So we can certainly leverage that. Run those out. I've got 139 enterprise params that were defined in this version 11.0 call manager for Miami as of this morning. And certainly we can read all those. I'm not going to bore us with all these pages, but definitely all the parameters are here, or any of the content that we may have needed for this cluster are definitely entertainable, if you will, in the content options underneath as built. So definitely a laundry list of options. Your IP phone registrations is probably another very large one as well, I would probably think. So the registrations, serial numbers, firmware, and CDP, those are definitely going to be go-to as-built reports for this. But at least in this light, you'll be able to to reference what were the configurables in Call Manager that's now offline that you don't have exposure to, but Variphy still has these breadcrumbs so that you can uncover those values or what those configs were at its last day of uptime, let's just say. So certainly we can easily see all of that. Then what we'll be able to do is identify and let things kind of age off. So Call Manager itself now, while the dashboard widgets definitely are going to have data for as long as the widgets will allow. Now, what I mean by age off is, and I'm going to read only anyways here. So all of the widgets themselves are not specific at a point in time. They're always have some type of relative time pull, whether that's the current hour, the current day, or the previous quarter. I think it goes back a couple quarters, but after that, there's going to be no relative time pull. So eventually, these widgets will age out. So the dashboards probably won't be used too much in decommissioning light, let's just say, but definitely all the reporting will be. So any reporting that you would need to run, again, any quick searches that you need to run for whatever. But now I do want to make mention things that will be turned off. So the automated report scheduling. So that on the decommissioned cluster will certainly be turned off, and you won't be able to leverage that. So let's slide on over to Miami and the schedules. There we go. So no runnable reports found for this cluster, meaning you don't have access for that because we don't want those to be ran because it's in a decommissioned light, let's just say. So from history searches are going to be applicable. Reports to run specifically ad hoc for a specific time range or a relative time range will be accessible. CDR purging will be disabled as well. Database purging will be as well. But the snapshots and the database stuff can be taken care of if we need to go ahead and remove them, or maybe even shorten the amount of retention that's in those archive databases. But certainly all that archiving, multi-database support will be attainable for these decommissioned clusters. And that will certainly aid any endeavor for the migrations that are certainly taking place. So there's not too much more to showcase, I don't believe necessarily, but definitely maybe I'll show you some of the buttons, I suppose. So again, last but not least here, let's just kind of jump back into this guy. So again, just to pound this home, so decommissioned clusters, they're not going to have any CDR processing. So those are going to be removed and stripped. So my Chicago cluster is the only live one I have up that's running. Miami and Dallas have been decommissioned, so there's no processings that are actually taking place. All of that has been disabled with the decommissioned licensing. Now, again, we will certainly see syncs in there for them because we want to have the most recent one. I didn't have a chance to get Miami done this morning, but I did for Dallas. So Dallas in a decommissioned state, you can see, is missing buttons. We cannot import into this. We cannot schedule any syncs any longer. This automation has actually been suppressed, let's just say. But definitely access to the databases is definitely there. So Miami is a decommissioned database as an example. So we'll be able to see what data is available in this decommissioned cluster and run any reports or quick searches against that as we need to. So from an analytics perspective, we certainly have you covered during those kind of migration routines. But again, one last time just to hit home, it's nothing that you can accidentally trip across and do. The button is there, but the button doesn't go ahead and just shut everything down. It pretty much gives you some information for you to go ahead and reach out on the side to verify, so that we can have those licensing discussions and potentially put in the decommissioned licensing onto your key. And then from there, certainly you'll have access to that data as you need to. Other than that, I think that's about all I have. I mean, pretty short topic for this week, but definitely something that we've needed, because certainly in the past, I've personally done this myself as an example. So if the Miami or the Dallas cluster, was decommissioned without Verify's exposure or even knowledge, as an example, and a client comes with, oh, they got rid of that hardware and we can't get back to it, or it's it's inaccessible, yada yada. But definitely the databases are still still connected to Verify. So what I had to do previously would be to use the multi-database supporting, if you will. I'd actually have to associate that that database from that room for that inaccessible cluster over to a functioning cluster. Now the problem with that is metadata, so the sync data. So while as I have a certain user listing, certain device pools for Miami, those aren't going to resonate against an Axel query off of a different call manager in a different region as well. So it was kind of a double-edged sword there. Yes, you can certainly search on some things, but you certainly wouldn't want to rely on any of the Axel fields that are brought back in the history stuff, like device pools, departments. Let me slide down to show your eyes. Like, come on. Like departments, user IDs, custom attributes, device pools, device descriptions, DN descriptions. All that information was a little bit of a mixed bag when you were trying to use an archive cluster in conjunction with a production one. So now 16.2 Verify, we have given licensing capability to go ahead and kind of put that off to the side and no longer write to it, but still have full leverage to be able to go ahead and pull down all the analytics that are needed for any quick searches or any managerial or executive review, or even most certainly and most popular to aid the endeavors of the migration processes that are certainly taking place out there in the fields. So I suppose for decommissioning, that's all I have on topic for today. Brian, might there be any questions waiting in the wings for me?
I do not see any questions. If you have any, now's the time, folks. But great presentation as always. I think this feature is going to be huge for us, because this happens all the time where, someone puts in a ticket, we need to run a report, but we shut down the cluster a month ago, kind of thing. And it's like, oops.
Yep.
I would give this extra word of advice to everyone listening. If you're ever planning on decommissioning a cluster, or even deleting anything out of Verify, like a user account or anything, maybe just reach out to us first for a quick sanity check, because doing things like that can affect being able to access your data. Like deleting a user might affect reports and dashboards that user had ownership over, for example. So, always a good idea. Reach out to us just so we can make sure you're not losing any data and that everything's a smooth transition. So let's see. I still do not see any questions, so I think we're good to go. I will go ahead and take the control back here. Thanks again to everyone who attended today. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Our next session will be on August 21st, when Kevin and Victor will be discussing things to consider when planning to move to a cloud-based calling platform. And actually, I think I have a handout for that.
I took care of it.
Oh, you did it. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I think that'll do it for today. Again, thanks, everybody. And we will see you next time.
Thank you all.